All right, guys. Well, I know we've got a big list of items to go over. We've got a few more po people popping in, but I feel like we can probably get started and they can join in as we keep moving along. So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. We are doing a whole series of educational webinars with CI Web Group. I'm Brandon Dunsing. For you that don't know, I'm the Chief Financial Officer at CI Web Group. Really excited to host this session today. Personally, very passionate about this topic. Today, we actually have a special guest joining us, Dwight Miller. Dwight is someone who has extensive experience in business coaching and EOS implementation. We'll get more into that later today. He has helped numerous organizations identify and achieve their goals. Interesting, not only is Dwight a seasoned business coach and an EOS implementer, but he also brings firsthand experience as a former business owner in the home service industry. He understands the intricacies of your business and the environment that you're in currently today. He's been in your shoes. And we believe as a marketing company that lives in this industry, we hear all too often the unique challenges that you as owners and as managers face each and every day really are becoming more and more complex. So from what we'd like to say is leading operations to retraining to training and attracting customers, the landscape is both dynamic and ever changing. So as you guys, in case you're just coming in late, we've got a general housekeeping, we've got a Q&A chat open in Zoom. I'm going to do my best to answer some of the questions. Maybe I'll ping Dwight as he's getting through his presentation. But we really wanted to leave today with some actionable insights, both to help improve your business operations and make you more knowledgeable and better armed to go out in that business world and take advantage of everything that you're doing. So with that in mind, I'm going to toss it over to Dwight, give him the floor, let him kind of cue up his presentation, take us on a journey, and I'll keep following along in the chat. If you guys have any questions, we've got a little bit of time saved at the end. So Dwight, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Perfect, Brandon. Thanks so much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here again. Thanks for the introduction. I was a former business owner. I had a heating, cooling, and electrical business that I started here north of Seattle in 2018. We quickly grew that business from startup to 15 million in about 4 years. And two-time Inc. award winner, Seattle Magazine's best workplaces, and all things that were really good. And yet we were incredibly frustrated and overwhelmed in our business. And that's how I actually discovered EOS, this very set of simple tools and concepts that really helped me orchestrate all the moving pieces of my business. So today, I'm really hoping to share some of that to help you sleep better at night as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, help you run more efficient, productive meetings, have find better people on your teams, and so really just orchestrating all these pieces to help you run a better business and ultimately live a better life. And so what I'm hoping to do here, let me share my screen. Are you able to see my deck?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. Really what I want to do here is I want to just I want to get real for a moment. I want to keep it simple, and I want to just talk about some practical tools for you to get some results in your business. Here's some statistics that I found really staggering, and a lot of them actually affected me as a business owner. That census data shows that 40 out of 100 small businesses fail within the first year. 80% fail within 5 years. 80% of those that do survive, they fail over the next 5. Disengagement is a huge issue now in our companies that can cost our company the equivalent of 18% of an annual salary. 23% of businesses fail because they don't assemble a good enough team. 14% of small businesses fail because they ignore their customers' needs, while the same number fail because of poor marketing skills. 13% of small businesses collapse because they lose focus. 7% are doomed because their failure to pivot. And not to make you more depressed, the stats are against us. It's really hard business to run. And I've been in it since 2009, and I've experienced all the major pain points in an organization. And one of the 5 that we deal with in EOS are, one's a lack of control. We just feel like we're out of control as a business owner in our company. We don't have control of our people, our processes, our systems. as we grow, things are becoming more complex. They're becoming more frustrated. Uh, Profit, simply, we're just not making enough. The industry average in the heating and air conditioning industry nationwide is about 2.3%. It's less than 3% nationwide. We're doing a lot of work for very little money, and a lot of times we don't know why. People, 80% of all organizations say people are their biggest issue. And I know in the trades, we really struggled with this. How do we identify the right people in this organization to take us forward so that they can continue carrying out our vision, taking care of our customers, and helping us achieve our goals as an organization? This concept of hitting the ceiling, this is where you just feel stuck, whether it's at an organizational level, it's at a department level, or maybe individually, you're just stuck. You hit the ceiling and you can't seem to break through this ceiling each and every time. And then this just nothing's working. It doesn't matter what seminar, what program, what leadership tool that you buy. You've tried to implement it. Your team feels like it's chaotic. It's a flavor of the month, and nothing seems to be getting traction in your organization. I'm hoping today to give you some tools and disciplines around how to strengthen your organization so that you can get what you want from your business. EOS is what's called the entrepreneurial operating system. It's just a set of simple tools and concepts to help you get more of what you want done in your business every day. Again, this assumes that you're in the right market and you're selling the right goods and services into that market, because if you're not, there's nothing that EOS can do for you. This is really about execution. It's about bringing your vision down to the ground with very practical tools to help you get more of the right things done each and every day. So what I'm going to do is take a quick pass around the model. It always starts with your business in the middle. And the first component of your business or any business is the vision component. And the vision component is just getting everyone in your organization 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you get there. The people component is ensuring that you've got right people in this organization, because it's going to be really tough to execute on your vision if you don't have the right people on your team. The data component is just boiling your business down to facts and figures on objective information rather than the subjective feelings, egos, and emotions that so often drive us as entrepreneurs. And what happens when your vision, people, and data components are clear is that your business just becomes transparent. All of your issues, challenges, needs, and obstacles, even opportunities, rise to the surface. And that's what brings us to the fourth key component, which is the issues component. This is just getting the issues that are in our head out on paper somewhere to resolve as a leadership team in our organization. The process component is getting the handful of core processes done the right and best way every time. This is what makes your business more easy to manage. It makes it more profitable. It makes it more fun when everybody's doing the most important things in your business the right and best way every time. And then the traction component is just bringing that vision down to the ground and executing on that. And so again, we'll talk about that here in a minute when we get into the tools and disciplines. But again, the vision or the dream of most entrepreneurs goes unrealized because we don't have the ability, or we have a weakness in bringing the vision down and executing on that relentlessly. We don't really know where we're going. And again, we talk about this concept of eating an elephant. We have to do it one bite at a time. And we really have to be methodical about setting goals every 90 days in this organization to execute on that. Gino Wickman, he's the founder of the entrepreneurial operating system. He says, vision without traction is hallucination. It's just a good idea. And many times that's what we have as entrepreneurs. We have a good idea. We just don't know how to get it done. So hopefully today I'm going to give you some of those tools. The first component and the two tools that I'm going to talk about, the first is what we call the 8 questions. And very simply, we work with leadership teams to answer 8 simple questions for this organization to get you all 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you get there. The way that we do that is in a 2-page document we call the Vision Traction Organizer. Again, very simple, strategic 2-page plan for your organization to really keep it simple and dialed with clear focus and accountability for exactly where this organization is going to be headed long term. The 8 questions are: what are your core values? What's your core focus? What is your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan? What are your quarterly rocks? And what are your issues, or what's your issues list? I'll take them one at a time. Your core values are just a set of characteristics that define who you are at your core and what you want from the culture of your business. And when we get into the people component, I'll share how you use those core values to attract the right types of people to your organization and hopefully repel the wrong ones and keep them out of your organization, maybe send them to your competitors. So again, that's core values, is defining who you are at your core and what you want from the culture of your business. Core focus has been called a million things in the history of business, everything from mission statement to vision statement. Stephen Covey called it voice. Jim Collins called it the hedgehog concept. We call it core focus because it comes from your core. And the key here is that you stay laser focused within that core focus so that you're always operating within your sweet spot. And it's this blend, this marrying of your purpose, cause, and passion with your niche as a business. We move then on to your 10-year target. This is your simple, clearly articulated number one goal for the organization long term. The time frame's flexible, anywhere from 5 to 30 years out, but clearly articulated. Where is we're taking this organization long term down the road? Once we've identified our 10-year target, then we get into our marketing strategy. And this is who we need to talk to and what we need to say to get the biggest return on our marketing and sales dollars. It's made up of 4 components. The first is the target market, the list. This is your ideal prospect, the demographic, geographic, and psychographic profile of the ideal clients, customers, or prospects that you want to target market to. And then the rest of the marketing strategy is what you need to say to them. This is your 3 uniques, your 3 identifying characteristics that make you different than your competition. What sets you apart from everyone else in your market? The proven process is a 1-page visual illustration. From the time somebody thinks about doing business with you until they're a long-time satisfied customer, this is a proven process that defines that every step of the way for them. And then the guarantee is your pledge or promise that reduces the fear of adoption or eliminates objections in the sales and marketing process. And the beauty with the marketing strategy is you've got a great agency like CI Web Group that can really get into the nuts and bolts. Once you've identified your target market, your 3 uniques, your proven process, they can then put the meat on the bone and really execute that in your organization, in your community, and gain market share. So again, core values, core focus, 10-year target, and your marketing strategy. We've identified who we are at our core, what we love to do and what we're best at with our core focus, where we're headed long-term with our 10-year target, and then who we need to talk to and what we need to say with our marketing strategy. We begin to bring that vision down to the ground with a 3-year picture. And what you'll see is this is a detailed strategic planning document. It's a very simple 2-page document, but this 3-year picture, what we're trying to do is identify in the mind's eye of all of our employees, very simply at a high level. We just need them to internalize it and adopt it, see the vision and the plan, and want to be a part of it. So we're going to identify our future date. We're going to project our revenue, our profit, and our measurables. And then when it says, what does it look like? We're just going to paint this picture, 5 to 15 bullet points of what is this organization going to look like 3 short years from now. Once we've done that, this helps us set up for really great 1-year planning. And so we move to the traction side of the document. We really crystallize that vision and bring it down to the ground with our 1-year plan. Again, we're going to identify our future date, our revenue, our profit, and our measurables for this year. And then we're going to set 3 to 7 goals for the year, not 23. And what we say with EOS is when everything's important, nothing's important. This is what's called the law of diminishing returns in business. The more I do, the less I actually accomplish. And so we only focus on 3 to 7 major goals for this organization to move it forward. This helps us understand with clear planning and direction, are we on track for our 3-year and our 10-year targets as a business? Once we've established and identified our 1-year plan, then we're going to establish what we call rocks. Rocks are just 90-day business goals or priorities for this organization. Again, clarifying all what we're trying to accomplish on our 1 year, 3 year, and 10 year. We're trying to break this down into 90-day segments. Again, future date, we're going to predict our revenue, our profit, and our measurables for the next 90 days. And then again, we're going to set 3 to 7 company rocks or goals and 3 to 7 individual rocks or goals for this organization, clarifying what really needs to get done in the next 90 days. And really what this is creating a 90-day world in this organization. From there, we're fleshing out issues. As we get through this, we're identifying people issues, system issues, complexity within the organization, and we're going to start compiling our issues list. That answers the 8 questions on the Vision Traction Organizer. And again, when we talk about the Vision Traction Organizer, what we need to do, the second discipline, is we need to share it with everybody in the organization. We need to get in a room with our team and we need to share this vision once a quarter. It's really important for our team to internalize it, understand the vision and the plan, and want to be a part of this long term. And one of my favorite quotes is by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and he's a French, I probably murdered his name, but he's a French author. And he says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. This is a beautiful quote about vision and what it means to teach people to understand where we're headed long term, paint the picture, help them understand where we're going as an organization. They will pick up some of the pieces, they will be motivated, they will have aspirations for greatness and help you accomplish your goals.
Yeah, Dwight, on that, the Vision Traction Organizer, I feel like that is so undervalued in business. You hear a lot of times when you start a business, what's your mission, what's your values, what's your focus, what are your goals, etc. And it's so easy when you're in business to just focus on day to day and what are the numbers coming in the door? Am I getting a sale? And you don't put the true time into establishing like these foundational values of your company.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for the first 6 months, the first 8 months, right? You've got a little bit of momentum, but the moment you start hiring staff, you start growing bigger than just a single person out there working, you start to break. Like everyone has to know, and you have to have laser focus on exactly what's important to your business. I saw that organizer and I was like, I don't want anyone to miss how critical that one slide was, because you see and hear it enough in a lot of different ways, but really your business will find a ceiling if you don't set up the foundation correct and really put the time into identifying those key critical components. That is where your first roadblock is going to be. So I really want to emphasize that back on your slide 8. So are we going to be able to see or get access to these afterwards?
Yeah, I'll send out all the tools afterward for everybody so that they have
Okay.
access to
Yeah,
them.
that would be awesome. Great exercise to do internally as an organization. Something that Dwight can talk to you about later on is how to work with him on all this as well. But this is just like the bare bones critical stuff that I feel like gets looked over that is just absolutely essential.
And I think you make a great point, Brandon, that so many times we're in the thick of it. We're slaying the dragons in our business. We're fighting fires. We're in the heart and soul of our business every day. And rarely do we step out and begin working on our business strategically, understanding, as you mentioned earlier, this isn't a static business. The trades are incredibly complex. They're dynamic. We saw this during COVID. We had to pivot very quickly going into COVID. We had to pivot very quickly as we exited COVID. There's always things changing with technology and advancements in our industry. And again, we have to be able to take some time. It's what we call clarity breaks, is be able to step away and look at our business as a whole and go, what's happening economically, politically, what's happening within the industry, what's happening within my organization, and where do we see that we need to go or do we want to go, and how do we recast that vision and ensure that we're staying on plan. The beauty of that Vision Traction Organizer is it's not a 50-page strategic planning document that you feel good about that you created and then you never look at again. It's a very simple tool. And again, EOS, we always say the tools are simple. They're not always simplistic. It's always about what we call an exit planning, relentless execution. We have a vision. We're aligned around that vision. we have clear accountability, and then we have a rhythm by which we make sure that we're accountable to the aligned plan and vision of this organization. So we meet frequently to ensure that we're accountable. We're all around this same vision and plan for this organization, and we're holding ourselves and those around us accountable to achieving those goals. That's relentless execution, and that's really EOS.
Is it possible for, let's say you have an organization and you're stuck on some of these, right? They seem a little bit too lofty or they're a little bit too abstract for you. Can you bring in other leaders of your organization or people that you have a lot of trust in that just to see if there's initial alignment on, what's been done previously? Like how can you bring in other people in your organization to be a part of this process?
Yeah, we typically always start with the leadership teams of the organization, making sure that, again, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of this organization. So really what we want is we want collaboration. We want the smart people in the room helping us build this vision. And a lot of times an owner or a leader has defined their core values or their vision in their head. They've never
Mm,
shared it with anybody. And so EOS is about sharing it. We want this to get out, but we also want collaboration because that's how we get buy-in. That's
yeah,
how people feel vested in the outcome in this organization and really moving it forward.
yeah, love that. Okay.
Good. So people component is what Jim Collins in his book Good to Great calls right people in the right seats. How do we get the right people on the bus and how do we get them in the right seats? So I'm going to break these down for you and make them a little bit more tangible and give you a couple of tools for each of these so that you, when you've defined and discovered your values in this organization, we can truly find out, are these people the right people for our organization? And right people are just people who reflect your values as an organization. They're people you love and adore who they consistently exhibit the values in this organization. The first tool that we use that I'm going to teach you is what we call the people analyzer. And this is a very simple tool that you can use in your organization to evaluate black or white whether or not you've got right people, people who reflect your values in the organization. And I typically will take this through an exercise with the leadership team. Once the values have been discovered and defined, we do a real-time performance review. We want to make sure that the leaders actually reflect these values in the organization. And then typically I'll take employees through this as well, and I'll align the core values at the top. And then we take a very simple bar or rubric that says plus is most of the time this person exhibits the values because we're human. Plus minus is sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And minus is most of the time they don't exhibit this value. And if you've got 5, typically you're going to have 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses as kind of the grading metric to help you better facilitate conversations with your employees to ensure that they always remain the right people. It tells you their successes, where they're doing things really well that you can support, and then helps you help correct behaviors that are antithetical to your values as an organization. Ultimately, using this tool as a very simple tool, high level, to always ensure that you have right people in this organization. There's typically one more component to this, which is not on here, which is called GWC. And that's typically after the values, you'll see that they get it, they want it, and they have the capacity for that. And really, that's what we determine for right seats. So right person is the values, right seats is do they get the job? Do their neurons fire? When you explain the job, do they seem like they understand it? Do they have the skill set? Do they want it? When they get up in the morning, are they fired up? Are they charged up to actually do the job? Or all you hear is complaining, Eeyore, moaning every day that they come into work? And then do they have the capacity? And capacity is the one where, there's a lot of times as an organization, we're training and developing people. You as an organization have to decide, if you're hiring a bookkeeper or an accountant, do you have 3 or 4 years to get somebody up to speed in the accounting side? Most of the time it's no. Sometimes maybe it's a technician or an installer or salesperson. You've got 2, 3, maybe 6 months to get them up to speed. Capacity is the one that is negotiable there. But typically for us to determine right person, right seat, they need to pass the bar on the core values. And then they need to really get it, want it, and have the capacity. And I'm going to talk about the 5 major roles for each of these seats in the organization. When we talk about the accountability chart, this is, you probably understand this as what you would probably know maybe as an org chart or an organizational chart. The accountability chart is a little different with EOS because it really stems around functions that bring value to an organization versus titles that sometimes can drive ego or control in an organization. And the accountability chart is based on the basic premise or belief that every organization only has three major basic functions. There's typically a marketing and sales function in the organization, which drives demand and turns that demand into orders. There's usually an operations function, which takes that demand and converts it into products or services. And then there's usually a finance function, which then manages the money coming in and out of the organization. Typically three major functions within an organization. And we always take a structure first, people second approach when we're defining an accountability chart for this organization. And when I work with teams, a lot of times we're very heavy on the leadership team side of things. And the biggest risk that I find with teams is that we define our accountability chart around our people versus the simplest and best structure for this organization to take it forward for the next 6 to 12 months. And so a lot of times, we will customize this based on an organization because sometimes marketing and sales splits into two distinct seats. Sometimes operations is 2, 3, or 4 major functions, and sometimes finance splits into HR, IT, or other major functions, typically 3 to 7 at the leadership team level. You'll notice that there's an integrator. The integrator is the person who beats the drum. They orchestrate all the moving pieces of the leadership team. They drive accountability. They help execute the vision of the organization. They don't mind difficult conversations. They're typically very detail oriented as an individual. And then you'll see the visionary. The visionary is a big picture person. This person, a lot of times, their head's in the clouds. They come to every meeting with 30 ideas. They don't like the difficult conversations. That's best left for the integrator. They love problem solving. It's just who they are. They're big dreamers in the organization. And typically what we do is we have to identify, if we've got a clear visionary in this organization, we have to call that out, because what happens in an organization with a visionary and an integrator, if a visionary is trapped in the integrator seat, what happens is you'll see 90-day spikes in this organization and then chaos ensues. Visionaries don't have the energy to sustain the projects and the plans long term. That's best left for an integrator. And so when we define the structure, we make sure that we do structure first, and then we identify what we call the 5 major roles of each of these seats. And again, that gets it, wants it, and has the capacity. So we're identifying first, when we look at something, here's an example of marketing and sales. What are the 5 major roles that seat's accountable for? And again, we could highlight 100 different tasks, but that's not it. If you were to roll up everything in this organization under 5 major roles that seat is accountable for, what would that be? And again, we do this through the organization so that when we move into placing people in the seats, they reflect and are good at, they get it, want it, and have the capacity for the 5 major roles of that seat, and they consistently exhibit our core values. That's what helps us really help identify the right person in the right seat, as Jim Collins says in his book. And once we do that, then we begin migrating this discipline throughout the entire organization so that every team on the leadership team has a built-out accountability chart, understanding what are the major functions in that department or division, and what are the 5 roles or responsibilities for each of those people on the team. This reduces ambiguity and increases clarity, focus, and helps everyone on the team understand who's accountable for what. And that's the difference between an accountability chart and an org chart, is this helps you understand who's accountable. Here's what happens, a couple of people issues that you're going to find when you implement these tools in your organization. The first one is what we call the right person in the wrong seat. These are people who you love and adore. They reflect your values. They're just in the wrong seat. And hopefully, if you've got enough seats on your team, hopefully you can find a spot where they're better suited for the 5 major functions in the organization in that seat. Otherwise, as a for-profit organization, we've got to make some tough decisions. We can't just keep people around that we love and adore who are not good at their job. We're going to have to make some difficult decisions as a business. The other component that we're going to have people issue is what we call wrong person in the right seat. And I would say personally, this is probably the hardest one as a business owner to address. This is somebody who is consistently good. They hit their numbers week in and week out. They're top performing in what they do, but they don't reflect your values. They're chipping away at your culture in ways that you just can't afford. I've had this many times. I've compromised many times and justified their existence because of their numbers. And again, to the detriment of the team around me, we really had to make a difficult decision and move that person along. And it's hard as an organization when you feel like you're backed into a corner. But again, when we talk about right people, right seats, we have to have both in this organization. When we talk about the data component, this is just boiling your business down to facts and figures on objective information rather than the subjective feelings, egos, maybe even emotions that we deal with as entrepreneurs. And I know that was the case for me. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And I, as an entrepreneur of a scaling organization, you feel frustrated. And all you feel like you're doing is reacting to one thing or another, and it just becomes chaotic. EOS, and I'm going to tell you, if you're a visionary in your organization or you're a business owner, EOS is Adderall for the visionary's mind. This just brings calm and clarity to everything that you do. It puts it into specific buckets for you to objectively manage and puts you more in control of your business. So again, the data component, I tell my leadership teams, if I was going to hand you a sheet of paper and you're on an island and you have limited Wi-Fi reception, you can't check your phone, your email, or text messages, what are the 5 to 15 numbers that give you an absolute pulse on this business moving forward? And so the way that we do that is a very simple scorecard of 5 to 15 numbers that are going to give you a very high level pulse on this organization. Who's responsible? What's the measurable? And what's the goal? And week in and week out, again, 13 weeks of history at a glance to give us an absolute pulse on what's working or not working in this organization. The greatest risk or temptation when we build out a scorecard is that we highlight and we try to manage or see everything in the organization. It becomes too complex, it's too in-depth. We don't typically have ways to measure or monitor or pull reports for all of those things, and it sidetracks our meetings. If you think about a scorecard, and again, you're going, wow, Dwight, this is way too simple. It may be, but what I want you to understand from a leadership team perspective is very similar to your vehicle. Your vehicle has thousands and thousands of parts in it. But what helps you understand if this vehicle's working or not is a very simple dashboard in front of your steering wheel. Typically 5 to 10 different gauges that tell you, is this vehicle working? Do I have enough fuel? What's my water temperature, my engine temperature? How far have I traveled? Am I running out of fuel or not? It gives us the high level pulse of what's working or not to ensure that we can stay on the road. That's what your scorecard is designed to do. When we get into the meeting pulse, I'm going to show you how to use the scorecard. So if something's off track, you can dive in as a leadership team and work to resolve those issues clearly and concisely and not get wrapped around the axle on details here. Okay, high level. 13 weeks of history at a glance. We always know who's responsible for keeping that measurable on track each week. What is the measurable, objective, and measurable information that we need to know every week in and week out? These are weekly activity-based numbers or leading indicators that are really going to drive our business on a weekly basis. One of the risks I see with leadership teams is they say, well, basically, we just look at our P&L. And the problem with the profit and loss statement in your business is that it's a lagging indicator. You're 2 weeks into the next month before that's finalized, and it's not actionable right now. So week in and week out, this gives you something that you can pursue, and you can make course corrections and adjustments with your leadership team and really dive into the organization to solve these issues and get this organization back on track with focus.
Yeah, Dwight, I love this one. I think that last point you made about the frequency is so critical about what's a leading indicator versus a lagging indicator, right? You've got your P&L. That gives you a snapshot of what occurred in the past. You know historically what occurred, and it may highlight some trends in the future, but these are all leading indicators, right? So if you've got a business out there, it's phenomenal for you to understand week over week, how many calls do I need to give me X amount of jobs, to give me X amount of, like you can break down, you can scale back all of what your business needs to operate successfully into this kind of week over week vision. And you can do it down to the day. A lot of businesses even have daily numbers, but this scorecard from a weekly perspective is phenomenal. It's a great balance of not getting too much in the weeds, right? Weekly is good for tracking maybe department stuff, very specific sales numbers, things like that. But this is really good for a company-wide scorecard. Weekly is a great snapshot to really understand high level. You can look at it, you get a temperature gauge on every critical key function and component of the business, all in one flat image so that you can get an understanding of what's happening and really get a temperature. And like you said, you can quickly identify, okay, I need to spend some more time here. We've got a gap. And you can get ahead of it before you're seeing it a
That's
month and a half later.
That's exactly right. And I've got teams right now that have really struggled in generating leads. They said, this has got to be on our scorecard. We've got to figure out a way to ensure that we have a certain number of leads and we're closing or converting on this number of leads to continue driving this business moving forward. That's got to be a critical component on our weekly leadership team meeting scorecard to ensure that we're either on track or we're off track. We're exceeding it or we're under it. And then again, we need then to resolve that issue and figure out as a leadership team or as a larger team, what are we going to do to get that back on track? I have some of my teams, accounts receivable is a huge problem. They've got $300,000 to $500,000 every month that they haven't, they performed the work, but they haven't received the money
Mhm.
and they're struggling making payroll, and yet the money is out there. That may be something there that says, hey, we know what our payroll number is. We have our cash balance as a company so that we know that we can always pay our bills. What's an acceptable accounts receivable number? What are the inputs that are coming in that achieve the outputs or goals that we need to keep this business moving forward and solvent for the greater good of everybody that works here? And so, again, to your point, this is our temperature gauge. It just gives us the high level of what's working and what's not. And the beauty of 13 weeks of history at a glance is it helps us see trend lines and patterns develop in this organization that we can really kind of dig in and go, what happened during this time? Was there something that was happening within the sales department or a service department that we can really dig into and identify?
Yeah, love that.
The second component on the data was measurables, and this is really that every department or division, as we migrate this discipline through the organization, every department has an individual scorecard for their department or division, and then every person in the organization has a measurable. A measurable is just a goal that I as an employee am responsible for keeping on track each week, and that's what drives discipline, focus, and accountability at every level of the organization. And again, I talked about when your vision, people, and your data components are crystal clear, all your issues just tend to rise to the surface. You become a transparent organization. And so this leads us into the issues component. I briefly talked about the issues list when we answered the eighth question on the Vision Traction Organizer. The issues list, again, is just this discipline of getting issues out of our head and getting it on paper and ensuring that no matter where we're at in the organization, every team or department or individual has the ability to push the stop button and say, I've got an issue, I need help resolving it. And so that's what the issues list is. Again, migrating this tool or discipline through the organization so that everybody feels like they have a voice, they can share the concerns, and that there's going to be help or support in this organization to resolving them for the greater good. The second tool I'm going to teach you is what's called IDS. And very simply, IDS is the issue solving track with EOS. And what we found is that even great leadership teams try to get in a room to tackle an issue, and rarely do they ever discover the root cause of the issue, and rarely do they ever walk out having resolved the issue. Frustrated and vortexing around the same issues week in and week out around their business. And so IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. And the way that this works is basically we're going to identify the issues as we go through this business, whether it's in our weekly meetings, which I'll talk about shortly. We're getting all these issues out on a list. And as a leadership team, what we're trying to do is prioritize each week the top 3 items that we have to make go away for the greater good of this organization. We can't really be good at accomplishing our vision if we're not good at setting our issues up, knocking them down, and making them go away. And so really working as a team to figure out how do we solve these issues and make them truly go away and be eliminated for the greater good. And so what we do is we identify the issue that's on the list. We say Andy isn't, Andy S in the right seat. We got an issue here. This is an example where we'd identify that that's a big issue or people issue that we need to resolve. And we have to go beyond what's written on the paper. We need collaboration in the room. To Brandon's point earlier, we got to talk about this as a team, and we need to ask very specific questions with everybody participating. What's the real root cause of why he's not in the right seat? We've got to discuss the issue briefly and only briefly with nobody repeating themselves. So again, once the conversation becomes redundant, we just move to solve. If there's nothing being added to it, everybody's collaborated, we all agree that that's the root cause, then we just move to solve. We identify who's responsible for making this issue go away, what's the action or the to-do, and then what's the date, typically 7 days or 14 days, to make this issue go away for the greater good of this company. Once we've identified and the solution for number 1, we very quickly move on to number 2. We identify the issue, the root cause of website example here. Website rock is off track. What's the root cause? We discuss the issue and only briefly, and then we move to solve very quickly as a team. What typically happens with organizations that we discuss the heck out of our issues. We just discuss it. We never get to a solution. And the key here is that we decide on something. Just decide is really the key when we're starting to work on resolving issues for the organization. What you're going to find as we work through this, and you're going to get through and you're going to identify number 3, we're going to erase those off the list. You're going to have an existing set of issues on this list. You're going to then take the existing list and you're going to reprioritize, again, the top 3 issues that need to be resolved. And you'll find it during the week when you do this as a leadership team or out throughout the organization, is that you get the buy-in, you get the input and suggestions and the feedback from people on your team to help resolve these. And some of your team's going to actually take responsibility and help you accomplish some of these and remove them and make them go away. That's the issue solving track. What you're going to find when you do this is that sometimes you're going to, when you start, you're only going to maybe get 1 or 2 issues accomplished during your meeting. Experienced leadership teams that have been doing this for 3 to 6 months, they're accomplishing 12, 15, maybe 20 issues during their meeting agenda together, feeling as though they're getting more traction, more movement, and they're getting things resolved for the greater good of the organization. So that's the issues component, is again, getting everything on an issues list somewhere through the organization, and then identifying and prioritizing these and making them go away forever. The process component, and again, I apologize for moving so quickly. I just want to make sure that I get you all the tools and everything out. And again, we will make sure that you get all this information after the webinar. The process component is ensuring that you are documenting your handful of core processes. Every organization has a handful of core processes in the organization, typically 6 to 10 that truly make the organization run. This is your secret sauce as a business. There's typically an HR process for how you hire, onboard, train, develop, maybe even fire people in your organization. There's typically a marketing process for how you generate demand, a sales process for how you turn that demand into orders, typically a handful of operating processes for how you deliver your product or your service. There's usually a customer service process for how you take care of your customers, and maybe an accounting process for how you manage your money coming in and out of the organization, assets, etc. Typically 6 to 10. And what we do with process documentation with EOS is we take a high level, what we call 20/80 approach. 20% of the steps that gets you 80% of the way there. Because the amount of effort that's required to get to document 100% of the steps gets you a 700-page SOP manual that sits on a bookshelf or a credenza that nobody ever reads. It's never followed, it's never updated, it's never managed to. And so very high level documenting your handful of core processes as an organization. And then we get everybody to follow those core processes. We train them, we measure them against those core processes. What we call LMA is leadership, management, and accountability. We have to lead our people, show them and train them on this process and ensure that they understand it, internalize it, adopt it. And then we update those processes frequently. One of the major concerns or frustrations as a leader is that somebody's just not doing their job. We want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to say they're no good, they're done. Let's move them on. I've done it myself, understanding that I didn't have a people issue. I had a process issue. We didn't train them. We didn't develop them. We didn't create the consistency by which they could actually do their job well and feel good about delivering consistent results for our clients and customers, and feel confident in how they did their job every day. And the process documentation actually helps us crystallize their role through that process. Here's an example typically of your company. This may be your secret sauce is, maybe a people process and defining the handful of steps, the 20% of the steps that would get you 80% of the way there. Identifying a need, defining a seat, what's our hiring steps, our onboarding, training, leadership, management, accountability, and maybe even termination on the way out. Again, high level. As people, we're really good at making things more complex. We can add tons and tons and tons of detail. The key here is the consistency to help us scale this organization so that everybody's doing the most important things in this business the right and best way each and every time.
Right, we had a question come in that I thought was really helpful, especially for businesses that are trying to scale, which is trying to find a balance between doing the job currently and restructuring their business and thinking about it in a larger scale. And how much time should they be dedicating towards creating these processes, right? Obviously, you put the hour in, it's only going to pay immense dividends in the future. But what's the right amount of balance when they're short on time and we're trying to figure out that process? How should they go about trying to think about that from a time commitment perspective?
Well, one of the things that I always, as we were going through it myself and completely overwhelmed, is the saving grace for me and our leadership team was actually getting outside of our business. Any
Mm-hmm.
planning strategically was not done in our conference room. It was actually done outside of the business because it was too chaotic. There was interruptions. People would come in, they'd say, it's just going to be a minute. It'd be 5, it'd be 10. It'd derail us from what we were actually trying to accomplish in creating this vision and the plan. And I think what's really important for leaders to understand, and this was a huge learning for me, is that we have to step away and understand. We have to dream and create and think about the constraints, the resources. What is this growth going to do to this organization at every level? That requires a lot of intentionality. It requires a lot of focus. It requires a lot of number crunching. That if you're stuck in the business, again, what we call the 90-day world, if I'm cutting a path through the rainforest, it's thick. All I'm doing is I'm in the weeds. If I don't ever climb to the top of that tree and make sure that we're cutting in a straight line moving forward, I could be cutting in a circle or a zigzag. I'm not working the most efficiently. My biggest encouragement for teams as you're building your processes is, one, understand where you're going long term. If we don't know where we're going, is the whole quote in Alice in Wonderland, it doesn't really matter how we're going to get there. We'll figure out a way. Most of organizations are successful in spite of themselves. And again, we don't know how to build this vision and plan at the grassroots level, the organic level, if we don't have a 10-year target that we're breaking down into a 3-year, 1 year, and every 90 days. I can develop a process today that's going to be obsolete in 2 or 3 months because it doesn't align with my longer range goals for this organization, or it's not scalable. It's too confined.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
again, if you can get out of your business, when I take teams through this, it's 16 hours to develop their vision. It's a lot of time off site to really think. Their minds are melting by the time that we're done because they never spent the time to think through the strategy and the constraints that this is going to place on this business long term if they do want to grow.
Yeah, that's great. I saw something recently, a little, not off topic, but on LinkedIn, it was someone said they call it their Saturday SOPs. And basically, it was a business owner that couldn't quite find the time during the week, right? Depending on your business cycle and how it works for you, you can find that extra day. But they'd spend every single Saturday, 4 hours dedicated writing one single SOP. And they did it for a year, and then they had 52 clearly defined SOPs to run their entire business. And then they rinsed and repeat. As they had new leaders, they take over that role and replicate. But I feel like creating that targeted time that you're just not going to give up instead of watching that show. Hey, instead of that hour-long show that I want to watch, I know my business needs this hour. I can dedicate this 1 hour, and it's going to give me 40 hours of savings, 100 hours of savings, right? The more you scale and the more staff that you have, the more you realize the benefit of that time spent on your own. So I think it's really important that you start to understand you have the time. You just have to be able to block it off and put it as a priority.
Yeah, and if you even take your biggest frustrations as a leader and start to distill it down, what are the things that are frustrating you the most?
Mm-hmm.
Is it people, or is it actually processes in the organization that are not defined, and it's just creating chaos? And sometimes just making a list and going, what's really frustrating me at the core? How do I begin resolving this and working myself out of this issue? Really helps.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up with traction. Again, traction is just bringing your vision down to the ground. And again, high level, we talked about rocks during the VTO, 3 to 7 company rocks for the company, 3 to 7 rocks for the individuals, and then typically 1 to 3 rocks for employees that they're responsible for keeping on track for this 90 days, creating this 90-day world in the organization, creating discipline, accountability, and clear focus for what everybody in the organization from top to bottom needs to be doing to drive this business forward. And again, creating the 90-day world. And that's just that every 90 days, we find that leadership teams, they lose focus. We did. This gives us the opportunity to look back on the past 90 days, see how we did in accomplishing our goals, take a look at our vision and our plan. Are we still operating with our vision and our plan and our core focus? And then we set new 90-day goals or rocks for the next quarter, and then go in and execute on those throughout the company. This is the one I really want to get to before we end today, is the meeting pulse. And again, a lot of organizations, they get frustrated. They sometimes don't have the right people. They're not spending the right time. Their meetings aren't moving the needle or getting things done. They're frustrated. They vortex around the same issues week in and week out. The rules of thumb for the meeting pulse: same day, same time. It starts on time, it ends on time, and then we use the same agenda, which is our level 10 meeting agenda. And here's how it works. High level. Good news. This is basically taking it from working in the business to working on the business. We're going to go around the room and share one personal business piece of good news and one business piece of good news. Quick 5 minutes, rapid fire around the room. That scorecard that we created earlier of the 5 to 15 numbers, we're just going to go through, and this is reporting only. Are we on track with who's responsible? What's the measurable and the goal? Are we on track or are we off track? If it's off track, there's no conversation, there's no narrative or discussion. All we do is drop it down to the component there that says issues list or IDS in the agenda. Somebody's taking notes and they're compiling this issues list as we're going through our meeting together. Somebody's keeping track of time. So again, we go through our 5 to 15 numbers on the scorecard. Are we on track or are we off track? If it's on track, great, we move on. If it's off track, we drop it down to our issues list, helping us keep everything that we need to on track for our weekly segment. The rock review, again, high level, company rocks and individual rocks, to make sure that quarterly we're on track to achieving our quarterly goals for the organization. On track or off track? If it's off track, we drop it down to our issues list. Customer and employee headlines, to make sure that our customers and employees are happy. Any issues there, we drop it down to the issues list. We interject a little to-do list into the organization for weekly accountability. And then you'll see we spend 60 minutes out of that 90 minutes on solving our issues, setting them up, knocking them down, prioritizing those issues, and making them go away. And again, out of that, you're going to find a to-do list that comes from solving issues in this organization. We spend 5 minutes concluding. Typically, we're going to recap our to-dos to make sure that those are to done next week. Any cascading messages? Was there anything that we talked about that we need to share with our team throughout the organization to keep all the circles connected and our people in tune with what's going on? And then we rate our meeting on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best. Are we operating as a great, healthy, cohesive, open, and honest leadership team? That's the level 10 meeting agenda, taking your maybe level 4 meeting, 4 out of 10, to a level 10 is same meeting agenda, starts on time, ends on time. And again, this is really important that you use this agenda, which I will send out afterward. It'll help you run more consistent, more efficient, more productive meetings, really moving the needle in your organization, getting the most important things done week in and week out. Really creates your marching orders so that you're not chasing a whole bunch of shiny things in this organization. Those are the 6 key components. Again, just helping business owners simplify and clarify and achieve their vision by helping put all of the 136 issues that you wrestle with into one of those 6 key components, because they're really just symptoms of a real root cause. Some interesting stats. I won't go into too much of it, but there's benefits when you implement a consistent system in your business. And again, whether it's EOS or it's another operating system, there's many out there that are great. We just say choose one. Choose and stick to one operating system in your business. That's what's going to keep it consistent and not create chaos or a flavor of the month for your team. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. I always say the hardest part about consistency is consistency. So that's what I've got. I really appreciate your time. Here's my contact information. If you do need any information or I can help any way with any of those tools, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Dwight. This was amazing. I'm definitely 100% personally taking away the level 10 meeting structure. That's a big takeaway for me personally. I know that's something that eats up a lot of time in our organization. As you scale, it's so easy to just get lost in a cycle. And I think it's always good to, like you said, kind of step above the forest, figure out the path forward, and then use some framework to kind of route that path. I love that format. The scorecard is going to become incredible. And that's something that you can do at the leadership level and take it down to the department level and work it in so many different phases throughout the business. So this was very insightful for me. I think it's absolutely critical. It's easy for business owners to get lost in the noise, get lost in their growth, their success. Their short-term failures as they're building a business, as we all know, is extremely hard and difficult. This year is not going to be any easier with an election year and the changing market and a post-COVID change up. And so any tool that we can use to give us some framework like this is phenomenal. So this is very powerful. We appreciate your time today. For everyone, please grab the contact information. We're going to make sure these slides get to you as well. And work with us, work with Dwight. If you have any questions, he's here for you. This is a huge resource that we think is going to be critical for you to take your business to the next level. And we appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to spend it with us. And we wish you guys all the best. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we're looking to have more of these. So feel free to always reach out if there's a topic that's interesting or you're looking to dive and get more information. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.